now it's time for our first panel of the day. Instead of people coming and sharing their stories and their slides and whatnot, we get to have a little bit of debate about the state of play. Mix it up a little bit for people. So without much further ado, I'm just going to hand over to my colleague Nick Muldoon and the panelists.
Hi guys, hopefully you're all having a fantastic day so far. I have some phenomenal people joining me on stage today. Daniel, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Daniel. I'm the commerce manager for the British Heart Foundation online shops. So we sell lots of defibrillators and lots of blood pressure monitors and Christmas cards, so a good mix of products.
Perfect. Next we have Sue. Do you want to introduce you?
Hi, my name is Sue Stephenson. I'm currently working at Smarty Mobile, which is part of the 3 network with over 25 years experience in retail. I always say you've named a retailer, I've probably worked there.
And Alex.
Hello, I'm Alex, so head of channels for Brandon Hire Station, Tool Hire. So I'm in theory where sales and digital meets for the business, and I have no years experience in using tools.
Thanks very much.
E-commerce, just to throw that in.
So you do have business being on stage?
Yes.
Cool. I'm Nick Muldoon. I'm head of customer success at JH. So we've done a little bit of a different spin on what a panel should be. So a lot of what you're going to hear and see today is completely organic. I think it is very difficult to see, but could you guys do me a favor and raise your hand if the past year has been more difficult than you thought it was going to be? Okay, so pretty much everyone. Well, unfortunately, it's a reflection of exactly where we're at. If you look at kind of long tails, if you look at even going back to COVID, the Panama Canal, war, inflation, rise in national insurance, the latest thing is tariffs, which has been a buzzword today in the marketplace.
It's depressing.
I've spoken to. What's that?
It's depressing.
Well, I mean, has that affected anyone here? Yes or no? Hands again. Thank you very much. So, what's your thoughts on this? Is this like a reflection of macroeconomics and cyclical performance, or should we actually be panicking and hitting the red button?
I think we should be panicking somewhat. So, when the tariffs come in, I think the general public really just thought, oh, this is a USA problem. It's not. Economics are global. Many of us are trading in the USA. A lot of us are forecasting against some of our trading numbers in the USA. And we've been hit time and time and time again. But economics does run in a cycle. And I think that's one of the things that you really need to think about. So, you've seen it time again with boom and bust. That's what capitalism is. But, it's trying to ride that wave. So, yeah, we are a little bit screwed.
Very, very polite. Alex, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so there's definitely, all I think is over the last, 10, 15 years, 20 years, you've had all the things, whether it's COVID or Brexit or tariffs or cost of living crisis. There's always things that crop up and put pressure on businesses, whether it be online, offline, in-store. From my point of view, it ends up being an opportunity to try and innovate if you can work it right. Sometimes it's really difficult, don't get me wrong. For example, things like COVID for tour hire, it pushed the B2C side of things. More people were trapped at home, didn't know what to do, so they spent a bit of time putting a shed together, working on their garden. So that spiked, and then that gave room for the evolution personally of the website. So what we could do, that then showed that there was the potential for that business to grow exponentially as opposed to just the B2B side of things. So then that triggered investment. And although after COVID, the revenue dropped a bit, it's then lifted again because that opportunity is seen in the market. So I think a lot of time, I think most people should be pretty confident in their ability and proud of what they can do and use their knowledge, because a lot of the time they can use this to advantage and innovate and experiment and develop their skills.
Fantastic answer. Thank you very much. Daniel, do you want to jump in on that before I change the topic really quickly?
Yeah, I think obviously charity sector in particular, it's one of those things that you they're seen as budget retail, it's seen as budget shops. we're at the moment at BHF, we've got 650 plus stores across the UK. We're buying a lot of kind of stores which have been shut down because they've gone bust. And there's these huge retail premises and all that kind of stuff. And for us, it's opportunity. It's this huge footfall that we're getting. It's a lot more donations. It's all that kind of stuff. And from an online retail perspective, there's, again, huge opportunities within the chaos, essentially, that we can try and pull out. On the other end, I was completely shafted by COVID because one of the things that I did when I was working at a previous charity was looked at all the products that we had, thought we've got way too much stock. We're hemorrhaging cash because we're just paying for storage. I sold all of our garden furniture, sold everything, did some really good deals. Then COVID happened. Literally within a couple of weeks, nothing was coming in. I had zero stock left because I'd sold it all. So we went into COVID and lockdown and all this with nothing. And I think I said to you the other day, Mike Tyson said it really well, that everyone's got a plan until they're punched in the mouth. And that's kind of where you have to kind of look at it. You have to move on your feet. You have to be able to adapt as you see things. And you can't predict. That's the key, really.
Again, phenomenal answer. I think you've raised a couple of good points that I'm going to come back to, but I want to pick on you, Alex, for a second, and so Daniel, feel free to jump in. But you've kind of said, you know, whenever things crop up and happen, what's your opinion on the European Union and the amount of like laws and policies that they're kind of enforcing? So, for example, the Accessibility Act that's being implemented across different member states, and how that implies where if you are actually trading outside of the UK, you need to comply with each member state's regulations. There's also not a tax. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but there's the things that they're doing to the likes of Google and Apple, and the power that is, you know, being applied. Any thoughts, the three of you, on that?
Yes, I mean, within the economic environment, it's difficult. I mean, we're getting back to the same thing when we come to tariffs in the USA, right? It's the same issues across Europe and trading. So for me, it's the same problem and the same barrier to resolve, really. But there are solutions. There are some technical solutions that can help you overcome some of those tariff barriers. And there are solutions out there that will actually automate that for you as well. But with the accessibility, that makes it very difficult if you're trading, especially if you're from one Magento instance and you're trading across all these different countries. It makes it much harder to manage. And you're taking the focus off of the actual trading of your site and growth possibilities, just in maintenance from my perspective.
No, that makes sense. Do you guys want to jump on that, or I can?
Yeah, I think a bit like my first answer, I think sometimes it could be a bloody chore to try and do this stuff. You know it has to be done, and it's going to benefit in you in the long run, benefit things in the long run with the website and your business. But doing it in the first place is a chore, getting the resources to do it, building it into your roadmap. Usually things happen pretty quick. You're not usually given loads of time to sort things out. So that's a difficult and awkward side of things. But again, I think often it puts you in a better place than going forward. I think that's quite important. A lot of these things that come in for a reason, and then going forward, it will give you a better plan or a better outlook.
Okay, so
I was going to add to that again, because obviously I'm part of an Ofcom regulated business. So this means fines for us. We literally get given legal deadlines in order to get certain these things put through. And if they say 27th of June, it doesn't matter what your roadmap looks like, you need to get it in, otherwise you're at risk of serious, heavy fines.
do you want to jump in? You don't have to.
I think sort of for us, I mean, we only trade in the UK. Part of the reason for that is that we're the British Heart Foundation. We don't want to mess around with like the Dutch Heart Foundation, all those that not step on people's turf. So we're quite sort of specific to where we sell. But even sort of when you look back to when GDPR came in, like that was a huge shift in what we had to do, generally for the better. Mm-hmm. I still don't understand why most websites need me to agree to cookies and all that kind of stuff, and that frustrates me as a shopper more than anything, as more than a retailer. But I think kind of even with some things like that, we're starting to come a little bit more full circle. People are starting to understand where the realms of possibility are within the rules. Mm-hmm. And I think that's really key, is to kind of learn from it and evolve with it, and again, take the punches and do what you can with it.
Fantastic point. So on taking the punches, like where do you guys currently, so we've spoken kind of around the macro issues that businesses face in terms of like, you know, just outside of your sphere of influence. What about the stuff you can control day to day? Like what issues are you guys facing, like as a business? Alex, I'm gonna come to you first. Like, where's the 2025 pains?
Well, I suppose I don't know whether this is for sort of macro or micro and in between. You things like SEO or PPC, we have huge issues. Hopefully lots of people have issues with like Google's lovely algorithms. So something will come out and you'll go, oh shit, we're the 100th worst site in the world. And then you'll start crying. And then the next day, we're number one, baby, we're back. And then the next day you've leveled out. And then you go, right, we've got 4 months, right? And then it's back again. So that's part of the issue. You've got things like, obviously you want to invest in organic SEO. That's really important. PPC, you had PMAX. So in theory, everyone's an expert. I just have to do my 10,000 negative keywords to cover things for me, okay? So all these little things there, and that's sort of the, macro, micro. That's let alone competitors. It's a very competitive market for tool hire as much as anyone. For us, we've got about 120 branches nationwide, probably 1,000 people. So then you bring in the different departments, so whether you've got ops or sales or finance or call center or credit control or fleet, decent size, they don't talk to each other in their like departments with us, I wouldn't expect them to. They're big ass, a lot of people to talk to. So then that again proves difficulties. So one area, when I originally got my job, I was e-commerce manager, so just run the website. Then I became the head of channels, whatever the channel is. But I tried to do that. So the idea with that is there was a lot of opportunity internally as well as externally to try and tie a lot of the different departments in the business together, because they're all digital. They have digital attributions. They use digital in a different way, and we can help them. So it increases work, increases meetings, but I think that's helped me in my day-to-day job to try and to try and be proactive in some of the issues that may come along, some of those smaller levels, by bringing people into what digital can do. So yeah, I think that's helped quite a lot.
That's really good. Actually, I'm going to come. So you said something that's kind of made me think of something else. Sorry, but on a similar topic, we had a conversation, and as another example of something that we've not spoken about at a macro level is fast fashion. Obviously, there's a lot of different industries here today, but you had a really good take about how fast fashion is actually impacting charities. And also, if you wouldn't mind, could you touch on the micro problems that you guys face day to day as well?
Yeah, I think sort of from the fast fashion side, I mean, obviously people go to charity shops. There's many reasons why people go to charity shops. Very rarely, actually, does it sit number one in their list that they want to support the charity. They like the charity, but they want really good deals. It's like any retailer, really good deals, really good product. And one of the biggest challenges we face is that we're almost seen by a lot of people as a waste disposal service. Like you'll pull up to the shop in the morning and you'll see that there's a bag of stuff just left on your doorstep, so essentially fly tipping. And you wouldn't get that with any other business. But what we see with fast fashion is that obviously the price, the value of these goods, they're dirt cheap in the first place. So for us to then resell them at a lower price, can we do it? Probably not. It then goes off to what we would class as rags. So it's product which cannot be sold. Still good clothes in most instances, but cannot be sold. And a lot of those, they get bundled up together, they go off to Africa, countries like that, and they're then sold on the markets in Africa. So that we're seen really as one of the best charities for a lot of these market sellers. We sent our guy out there to kind of talk to people and to see what happens with this stuff, and we're very close to the kind of the ethical side of things with kind of what's happening with this disposal product. But they see the stuff that comes from us is really high quality, but there's other sources that they get stuff, and it's just crap, if I'm honest. And it could be dirty, it could be torn, it could be all sorts, and the quality of clothes obviously coming down. So we still have our core customers. We still have some really good customers that buy, and I've sold in the past, I mean, completely different market, but we sold an £8,000 Xbox last year, and it was because it was green and it got donated. And there's some really exciting stuff that gets donated, and some clothing brands is not my area of expertise, but we get a lot of sort of high-end clothing that gets delivered, watches, all that kind of stuff. So all that stuff's really core to what we do. But yeah, there's this kind of underlying thing from this fast fashion that is really damaging, and people don't think of the long-term value from it.
So interesting. So if I can bring you in on this, because I know you have a lot of different thoughts in terms of like the micro and in terms of like what's facing retailers at the minute.
I mean, there's a lot of things facing retail. Like I said, we started off with the tariffs, we started off with the economics and the European regulations and the problems that we have that are impacting trade. I think there's also problems with investment at the moment for platforms and technology stack, right? So that's something else. So when you're looking for growth, the first place you would look is, can you get an A/B testing tool? Can you utilize AI? Can you do certain things? But where there's not budget for that, I think for me, it's always going back to the foundation of your business. What's your USP? And then looking at things that you can do. And I'd like to use an example that I've actually used at a brand that I was at previously, where we implemented a piece of work to improve email sign-up. Now, that sent the email department crazy because it was double-digit turnover of everyone suddenly pouring into emails, right, through A/B testing. But that revenue, it didn't actually increase until 3 months later. So when we're looking at the things that impact us, think about the things that you can do, which is like CRO and housekeeping. And I'd advise everyone today, take the 3 takeaways. You know, we talked about checkout before us, and all of the things which are converting and doing things, right? So we can't necessarily, work with the things which are going against us, such as tariffs, but we can still have a growth mindset and getting back to the basics and foundation of what we can improve. Fantastic.
So CRO? Fan?
Yep, CRO. I have to laugh at CRO. I've done many talks on CRO. In terms of percentages, there was one issue. We didn't actually do housekeeping on our site for search, right? And that yielded an extra 7% in sales and revenue. We've improved conversion through DCRO and A/B testing. We've also made sure that we didn't make any tech mistakes where we did do a test and it didn't work out. That would have fundamentally cost us a lot of revenue, and revenue in terms of paying agency to do work that was never required in the first place. So CRO is something that everybody should have. We talk about CRO, but you do need a lot of the data behind that. And I just wonder here today, how many people actually have a fully fledged data suite or a CDP suite, right?
Show of hands.
Anyone got CDP data suites? Okay. Well, in order to leverage CRO and some of the AI tools and out there, you need that data. So my question is, do you actually really know your customer? Are you working off the 3 core pillars of marketing? Because in today's society, that's just that you need to go that deeper level. I think I can go on forever and talk about, well, okay, you've got the data. How do you leverage the data? And that's where some of your AI comes in. And I'm not going to be a pitch for Adobe Firefly today, but you can, automate some of your content and be able to do that. But again, that's an investment. And I think at the moment, people are not ready for the investment and we're still struggling against. So again, back to basics, back to foundations, because, the investment to new systems, replatform is not there right now.
For sure. And Alex, I know you're a big fan of clean data and trying to prioritize that.
Yeah, Sue just absolutely said away with the back to basics stuff as well. I think I can be a bit of a magpie. I call something fancy and new and this new technology and let's go for it and it sounds cool and interesting. But especially when you've got macro, micro issues, getting the core stuff right, getting your product purchase journey right, getting your search functionality, getting your emails, getting your SEO, getting your PPC, all that's really crucial and it's not quite as interesting, but in the long run it will help build your site and build your business more. And if all these issues come about, whether you have drops or declines, you can fall back on that. Whereas sometimes people haven't got that solid structure to fall back on, and that can be really, really dangerous. So I think I just follow up there. I think that's really
cool, awesome. So there's 2 letters which I absolutely begrudge, but I am a geek about it, and that's AI. I think it would be a bit of a disservice if we didn't touch on it. So at the minute, I think ghost AI, so essentially the practice where you ban the use of certain tools or certain LLMs, but your employees and staff will use it kind of not on that system, but maybe on their phone to get answers. That's something that's like absolutely plaguing things, like different businesses. Unless you're paying for the LLM, your security's at risk. If you look at, security practices, you want SOC 2 as an example, like base minimum. But Daniel, I'm going to come to you first. Helping or hindering businesses at the moment?
It helps us on the back end. It does a lot, but it's a huge, huge hindrance on the front end. I think as a content-based company, where obviously we're giving out medical advice in particular, I've got a really good example where a customer got mad at us because we wouldn't take the VAT off of their products. And we said, you can't take the VAT off your product, you're not eligible. Well, Google told me I could. And it's like, there's no sources that you can see that tell the customer that. There's one place where it would tell it, which is the Google AI. And so I think a lot of these tools, it does worry me because a lot of these tools have come out very quickly and they haven't been properly kind of educated, is probably the best way to phrase it. But there's a lot of sort of misinformation that gets generated through it. And I tried it just the other day and it gave the wrong website for my website. It didn't mention my products when I asked for the cheapest products. And I'm using this as a customer. I'm not using this as a retail manager. Like I'm using it as a customer would. And it's failing on every front. And so when we're going from having top ranking on all of our Google listings for blood pressure, sort of high blood pressure monitors, all that sort of stuff, you'd think that if you're searching for a blood pressure monitor, it would be there. But no. I read something recently saying that you've got pretty much a 25% chance if you're in the top 4 to actually rank at all on any AI results with the new Google search systems. And it's painful. However, I just did my annual review of my own goals and all sorts, and I just stuck 1,500 reviews into an Excel spreadsheet, used Copilot, and it told me these customer reviews where the problems were, and it did it really well. And I know Trustpilot, people like that, they all use those sorts of tools as well. So there's two sides to the coin. And from my side, we're a tiny, tiny team. There's myself, there's an e-commerce assistant, we've got a product owner who should have been here today, but he broke his ankle to get out of it. So he sent me a swollen photo last night, which I was a bit concerned about as it was loading up. But yeah, so it's challenging, but again, opportunities there, that's the key.
Sure. So we're saying Gen Search is a massive risk to retailers everywhere, and it is, and that's going to be a fundamental change throughout the next 6 to 9 months. Well, I say that knowing how fast things are going, probably 0 to 3 months. But its the major benefit is that it can scale and help you guys scale with, like, essentially allow you to punch up. What's your opinion, Sue?
I think AI is a big conversation and we're still not really utilizing it fully. And I don't think there's a lot of trust in it yet. So at the moment, in terms of AI, we've tried it on development and using Copilot for code. And it has sped up our code development in terms of getting things to market quicker. We have used, like I said, a Firefly before for content to try to get content out a lot quicker, which has been really useful. And there is some AI SEO tools we've trialed out there, and I think everyone uses ChatGPT. But what I found really interesting about that is I've used it for content before, I've used it for SEO before, and then everybody I ask, some people use it for legal information, some people are using it for their SEO or to fill their content or their blogs. And we're all using it for different things, but I don't think it's going to be there to run our businesses anytime soon. It's just a tool and an aid at the moment that still needs to improve, and the trust around it needs to improve.
Interesting. I have a slightly different take. So I think, like, they're the panelists. I'm just interjecting myself. I think where a lot of people focus on prompts and creating the perfect prompt, and someone from this company or that LLM will come out and say this is the best prompt you can use. I think your relationship to that LLM and that tool matters so much more. So instead of having 5-page, 5 characters, 5 bullet points, here's what I need to do to get the perfect answer, it's really like, hey, I want to do this thing. You know exactly who I am, what I do, what I want. Can you help? Okay, cool. And you work through that. I think whereas the kind of retail audience catches up and businesses catch up with AI, there will be practices of creating agents within LLMs. So, for example, you've just said about legal advice, create your own solicitor. Okay, you're definitely going to need to get that checked for legal reasons. Or, create my own marketer. I can have an agent set up. I can call that I don't know, Christopher copy, as an example, create all of the copy I could possibly need for my own personal LinkedIn, which I don't do because if you've ever seen it. Or, create and replicate across businesses. So I think I'm on your camp here that it really allows to scale, but you're absolutely right in what you're saying in that it will take X amount of time. There is a massive element of being spoon-fed versus people actually leading the charge, but as Alex has already touched on, we probably don't have the time on our hands. I know we would all love to spend time screwing around and finding out with AI, but we just don't have that available. So that's my 2 pence. Alex, Moving, like we've spoken through macro, we've spoken through micro, we've spoken even through AI. What about the breakthroughs? Like, what can retailers in the audience take away from today? Like, what's the message and practice you would like to give them to focus on?
Well, I'm going to go back a bit to the start. I think out of all this comes innovation and progression. So I've spoken a bit before about things like firefighting, where you can have a week, by the end of Friday, I'm going to have this project done, it's going to be on point, amazing. You get to Thursday night and you're tearing your hair out because you've regressed, because you haven't achieved anything that week. I think a lot of the time, even when these issues happen, macro, micro, or you're firefighting, I think a lot of the time you can build it into a project or a longer roadmap. So even if you have Google algorithm issues, or you're trying to do SEO, or you've got accessibility things, I think a lot of the time if you can wind that into a larger roadmap and a larger picture to achieve something. We've had issues before, don't tell anyone, like on the product purchase journey where little things have gone wrong. And we fixed them. But in the end, we noticed other things, and that fix led to a 6-month, 1-year project to overhaul that product purchase journey. So I think the idea is if you're trying to solve things and tackle things, don't let that just be it. Try and roll that into a wider solution. Because one, you achieve that, it can make you feel pretty good as well.
Awesome. Daniel, I'm going to come to you next. What piece of advice would you give the retailers in the audience?
I think it's really kind of what Alex touched on earlier, is it's the brilliant basics. It's getting everything that you need for success in place first before you maybe start thinking of all these sort of exciting periphery things, but also allowing yourself enough time to do the basics. So if you dedicated 80% of your time to doing the basics and 20% time to all the exciting stuff, great, but don't let one overtake the other because your business starts to fail as soon as you start to take your eye off the ball. So whether that's SEO, content strategies, all that type of stuff, or whether, I mean, in our situation at the moment, we're trying to get off of spreadsheets. That's the key thing for a multi-million-pound medtech business that runs almost entirely on spreadsheets. So it's every retailer's got a challenge.
What a confession.
Yeah. But no, we're looking and we're evolving with that. And again, for us, that's a huge project we're behind at the moment. But still, my day-to-day doesn't change. I need to make sure the right content's being done in the right way, and my team are doing the right thing. So keep close to the basics.
Phenomenal. Sue, last but not least.
I think I'd reiterate what these guys said when we talk about going back to basics. But I think when you talk about going back to basics, I think one of the first things is don't build a problem for the future. And this is a really scary thing to say. A lot of people keep thinking that you're going to hit 20%, 15%, 20%. It doesn't matter if you were 35% last year and you're up 5% this year, you're still up. Don't buy loads of stock to get yourself into trouble so that when you actually go back to growth, you have a business problem. So that's the first thing I would say to avoid. The second thing is to really step back and ask what's going to make money for you. You know, I gave 2 little snippets. Changing our search and just doing basic housekeeping gave us an extra 7% of revenue. Doing the pop-up on the email drove revenue 3 months later. There is a thing around long-tail sales. We can't just keep pumping PPC, trying to get people through the door in today's environment. So take a step back and look at what you're actually investing in to actually drive long revenue, you know, to get the customers through the door. Look at loyalty, change your loyalty programs, engaging community. Community is a big thing at the moment, right? It's driving loyalty to brands. People are exacerbated by the current loyalty programs. Just look at all the tech stack that you have today. Take a step back and breathe. Because in the day-to-day, when you are being asked, churn it out, make more, sometimes you lose focus on what could be driving revenue for the next 6 months rather than for the next 2 weeks. I just say breathe.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to everyone. I think my approach and takeaway is that for every retailer in the audience, you're not alone. The show of hands at the start and throughout has been damning, telling. Keep your head up, keep going. Thank you very much. Have a good day.